airworthiness is going to become a requirement. Some form of type certification, similar to manned aviation, is going to become a requirement. And when you start to throw all those terms around, and then you throw a commercial operating certificate on top of that, next thing you know, we're thrown into the maintenance world.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 223. Ever wonder how all of these drones are going to be maintained? Well, there's one company that has a plan to do just that. Andy Osantowske is Director of Operations for Robotic Skies, the only global network of certified UAS maintenance centers. Robotic Skies offers comprehensive turnkey field service programs designed to keep UAS flying safely, efficiently, and affordably around the world. Founded in 2014, the company has more than 170 certified centers in more than 40 countries, providing maintenance, repair, operations, and support services for commercial UAS. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Andy talks about the company's UAS maintenance and repair service and how it can help operators save time, money, and maintain mission readiness. But before we hear from Andy, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Now you have the option of making a one-time donation in any amount by going to droneradioshow.com/donate. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. And if you'd like to make a monthly contribution, you can still go to patreon.com/droneradioshow. So let's learn how Robotic Skies plans to service the commercial drone industry with Andy Osantowske. Let's pick up the interview where I ask Andy to introduce himself.
My name is Andy Osantowske. I am the Director of Operations for Robotic Skies, and we are a startup specializing in UAS and drone maintenance across the globe.
Andy, how long has Robotic Skies been in business?
Technically since 2014, but only recently has our business started to, accelerate due to a couple of things. The primary factor is the latest fundraising round that we just went through that Boeing actually led, along with some other smaller investment groups. They all came together and gave us a sum of money to go out and continue growing and continue to prove out our business model.
What's the story behind Robotic Skies? Why was it created?
Our CEO and founder, Brad Hayden, he's pretty well known in the aviation maintenance and MRO space, specifically in avionics. His father owned a few avionics repair stations out in the Western U.S., and Brad kind of followed in those footsteps, but also took it a little bit further throughout his career. And it was, I think he said it was either in 13 or 14 as he was flying RC model aircraft and just kind of being around this hobby group when he realized, hey, there's going to be a need. I don't know when, but there's going to be a need for maintenance on UAS. So he started Robotic Skies in 14, and out of the gates, he started recruiting service centers, existing Part 145 repair stations that carry specific ratings dealing with avionics and electronics to come into this network called Robotic Skies, where we would connect manufacturers and operators with existing certified maintenance repair stations to fix UAS when the use cases or the complexity of these aircraft got to a point where, in his mind, a few years back, that there would be a requirement or a standard similar to manned aviation levied upon unmanned systems. And it was a pretty incredible forethought to have, and it's getting really close to being proven right.
If we break the drone industry into the consumer, prosumer, and the advanced commercial markets, where does Robotic Skies fall in terms of maintaining drones?
Not that there's anything wrong with the consumer grade or the prosumer grade units and models. I think they're really great technology out there. But, from the get-go, the trigger point, if you will, for coming to a service like ours would be, is it more cost effective to replace a unit if it is busted or broken? Or is the level of investment such that you need to continue to repair it and to take it to, technicians who could fix components or replace things or update software or the like. So it's very much outside of the realm in a sense of the consumer drone, very much into complex and what can be very expensive platforms.
Can you talk about the type of drones or the models that you typically handle?
Yeah, models is a little touchy for us because we don't necessarily want to show favoritism towards one manufacturer over another. So we generally don't speak specifically to models or manufacturers, but I can tell you there are units and manufacturers that we're partnered with that have done things in professional filmmaking and movie production to the intelligence and surveillance reconnaissance missions done by the DoD, mainly abroad, overseas, and some pretty complex units that deal with time-critical and life-saving sort of missions. If we looked at a bell curve in a sense of the value or the purchase price of a lot of the vehicles that we work with or work on, there's pretty much in the middle. We're at the six-figure range. We have some that are into maybe the high 20s, low 30,000 for the price point to enter into that type of vehicle. And then it just goes up. There's no upper limit. So, and I don't mean to skirt around the subject in the sense, but like I said, we're very intentional in making sure that we are agnostic to vehicles. We don't want to show favoritism on one side or another. We're here to help everybody out that needs, a certified maintenance program when the time comes.
So is it safe to assume that we're talking about the higher end, more sophisticated drones that are produced by larger manufacturers or used by larger commercial organizations?
It's not just large companies or traditional companies you would think of that are manufacturing. I mean, there's a good number of our manufacturer partners that are smaller, kind of tailor-made shops where they make some incredible technology and have some incredible vehicles that are used by some very well-known operators, and they get into some more complex operational envelopes that are well beyond Part 107 or what's allowed in 107. But back to my original point, it's not just big manufacturers. There's a lot of really great smaller manufacturers out there that are making incredible vehicles. And I've been with Robotic Skies only a few months. I come out of a different part of the industry within UAS, and my eyes were open to how many just fantastic vehicles are out there once I came here and saw, and not just in the United States, but also in Europe. There's a bunch of really great vehicles being made out in Europe that I just never knew about.
Can you talk about the recent investment by Boeing? What does that tell us about Robotic Skies?
It's a validation of the concept. It's a validation of the business model that Brad's been tirelessly working on for the last handful of years. And if you look at some of the other investment that specifically Boeing has made within the UAS ecosystem, we can name a handful of other companies and see how they started, where they're at today, and where they seem to be going. It very much shows that there was an interest, but also there's a bigger, larger company who's very well versed in this space going, we see validity in what you're doing. And the investment represents the ability to go and build the team a little bit more, gives us the capital that we need to go and really run this concept through, attract new clients and new manufacturers, as well as attract operators into our ecosystem to show them that, the traditional model of UAS maintenance today, which is to send your vehicle back to the manufacturer for repair, is both time consuming and costly. There is a maintenance solution out there today that can fulfill all those needs that could be local to where you're at, where you're operating. And having that investment allows us to continue to build that program out, but to also communicate that to the UAS industry as a whole.
Let's talk about the difference between the traditional model and what Robotic Skies offers. What are the benefits to the customer?
Like I said, the traditional model is to ship it back to the manufacturer and have them repair it. And normally when that happens, it often ends up into some sort of a backlog of repair because the manufacturer themselves are trying to balance keeping vehicles that are already out in the field flying and serviceable, as well as producing new units, as well as doing research and development to advance or to continue to iterate their designs and their software or whatever their R&D process is. But back for the operator, though, that eats up time. Drones are no different than, say, an aircraft or an airliner when they're on the ground and they're not running, they're not making money. They're not performing that mission that you procured or purchased them for. So for Robotic Skies, what we've done is we offer a local repair solution where if your unit breaks and we are working with your manufacturer, you can let us know via software platform that you have a broken UAS. We'll let you know where to go, what what locations nearby that you can drop your unit off at. And when you do so, there will be technicians at this repair station who are ready to work on your vehicle. They're trained up by the manufacturer, or trained up rather by us, who creates training for the manufacturer. And parts are arriving, and there's a whole logistical piece on the backside of that plays out. The way we see it is it would shorten the turnaround time of getting a repair and inspection complete from sometimes 90, 100, 120 days down to 3 or 4 in less than a week. And it would be something that's just down the road. If you're in the United States, internationally is a little bit different because we're not as widespread as we are in the US. But, you know, it would, like I said, it definitely shortens the return to service time and back to the manufacturer by alleviating some of that pressure to support their field units by going with a trusted partner like Robotic Skies to service their field units. They can continue to develop their units, develop new products, as well as produce additional units for sale.
And I imagine that many clients don't have a bunch of drones just sitting around that they can plug in. So when a drone goes out of service, it could mean quite a bit of value being lost.
Absolutely. And there's some users and operators that we are working, we hear anecdotally through the manufacturers that we're partnering with that 100-some day downtime is not possible due to their mission critical or time critical mission set. So having the ability to get a repair done quickly and at a very high grade, at a very high quality, in this case, it would be aviation grade quality, just serves them so much better and keeps their vehicles flying.
How many centers does Robotic Skies currently have?
Currently on our network, we have just around 170 repair stations that are either Part 145 certificate. Actually, almost all of them are Part 145 certified repair stations with specific ratings, as I mentioned earlier, in the electronics, avionics, instrumentation areas. A little bit more than 170 are actually spread across about 40, 45 countries globally. We are growing that network. That's another thing that this investment allows us to do, is to continue to build that network out internationally so that there are options for customers who are in Europe, Australia. You got some in South America. We have a couple in Africa, Middle East. We're spread all over the place, and we continue to grow that network.
Are these new centers, or were they already servicing some other type of avionics?
Yep. They're currently existing and independently owned manned aircraft repair stations. We're just bringing them into our network to perform work on UAS. When we look at avionics repair shops, you think about it, most UAS technology today are a lot of carbon fiber or molded plastics with basically a computer inside. We looked at the avionics and the electrical and instrumentation shops because they have a finesse to their repair. They're really good with soldering circuit boards, wires, connectors, all those things. Those are the types of stations that we look for. We look for ones that are very much well established and have a really good reputation within their field.
So essentially, you look for existing service centers that have a track record for reliability and performance in avionics and service. And then you contract with them to take care of your business. They still have their own business, but you're providing an extra service to them.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, this would just be an additional, in a sense, an additional revenue stream for the service centers.
In terms of the overall industry, what do you see that makes you feel confident that this business model will continue to grow?
I think there's a handful of developments that just occurred earlier this year that I think are incredibly telling on where this industry is going, specifically in the repair space. In April, there was 2 exemptions that were granted for one for BNSF and the other for Google Wing for their Part 135 certificate. So they can do some package delivery out here in Virginia. And in both cases, maintenance was heavily talked about in their exemption. Now, of course, we didn't see what exactly they filed. That's all proprietary information, but kind of reading between, or reading the tea leaves, if you will, on those 2 different exemptions, what we're seeing is a development of, as use cases continue to evolve and advance, specifically into outside of Part 107 or even more so Part 91 commercial operations, that airworthiness is going to become a requirement. Some form of type certification similar to manned aviation is going to become a requirement. And when you start to throw all those terms around and then you throw a commercial operating certificate on top of that, next thing you know, we're thrown into the maintenance world. How are you going to maintain these? How are you going to ensure that they are airworthy, safe to fly, they have the redundancies are there, all of those things that have been well proven and are part of our safe airspace system are very much going to be adapted and just kind of adopted over in the UAS space. And we see the maintenance industry for UAS becoming a real thing in the very near future. Just recently, we were at the FAA symposium here in Baltimore. I live in the DC area, and we had the opportunity to talk to some of the aircraft certification and flight standards representatives from the FAA. And we kind of threw them almost what I said to you was, hey, we're reading the tea leaves, seeing this kind of trend coming out of these 2 different documents or 3 different documents. Are we reading this right? Are we seeing that, robust maintenance is going to become a thing, that airworthiness and continued airworthiness is going to become a thing in this space? And they all looked at us without hesitation saying, yep, absolutely. We're going to do the same thing we did in manned aviation for unmanned aviation.
Are the service centers recognized by the manufacturers as sort of an authorized drone repair facility?
So we do all that. So we're turnkey for both sides. We're turnkey for the manufacturer and we're turnkey for the service center itself. And actually, if you really want to get into it, we're turnkey for the operator. Meaning, so if we look at the 1/3 of the pie, the manufacturer, we will help them develop a aviation grade maintenance program as well as training, technician training. Once that's approved and signed off by the manufacturer, we will then go out to the service centers, rather our network, and we can either deploy it globally across the entire network, or we can be surgical as to where we deploy the training based on where the manufacturer has units. And we will train that service center or service centers on the specific unit or units that the manufacturer make based off of their approved training program that we develop. So they're ready to go. So then when the operator comes around and gets into our software system requesting a repair, they can see where the nearest repair station that carries or that can service their vehicle is. And they don't even really interface with the service center that much, if at all. They just drop their UAS or their vehicle off. The service center already knows what the work order is, what needs to be done. Parts are on their way. They'll complete all of the repairs as necessary. All the billings handled through us. There's no money exchanged with them at all. They get a notification their UAS is ready to pick up, go grab it and head out and fly. So it's, like I said, it's turnkey for all 3 stakeholders in our process.
So the only point of contact for the customer is through Robotic Skies?
Correct. Yeah. And that would go for customer complaints or some feedback. If there's a repair that doesn't seem to meet the operator's expectation, they're going to be dealing with us. They won't be dealing with the service center.
What about regular maintenance or routine service? Is that something that Robotic Skies currently provides?
Absolutely. Preventative and scheduled maintenance is just as much of a key component as unscheduled maintenance for us. So we're helping manufacturers either define or develop, if they don't have already, some sort of periodic and scheduled maintenance checks and inspections. Each manufacturer is different. They have different ideas on when those things should occur. But in any case, whatever they currently prescribe or whatever we can work with them on to get developed into their maintenance program, yeah, we'll definitely do all that as well.
That leads into my next question. In the airline industry, every plane has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hours of flight time. The manufacturer knows every inch of the plane and has designed maintenance plans around the potential risks derived from all of those hours of flight and testing. We find a much different story in the UAV industry right now, with very limited knowledge of the long-term performance of various UAV models. How are manufacturers responding to identifying a good regular maintenance program? Do you think they know their drones well enough to say that they have one with confidence?
I think we're helping a lot of manufacturers figure that out. There are some very smart people that are building these vehicles that have really good ideas, and without data, they're taking their best educated guess. I guess the bigger problem is, unlike manned aviation today, where there's robust data tracking, operation tracking, hours tracking, there's not much of that in the UAS space. So predictive maintenance is very much a lacking space within the entire industry. And that's something we're hoping to help out with, as well as we collect data about their individual units that are out in the field and what's failing at what points. We can hopefully feed them data back to say, hey, maybe this needs to be adjusted or moved up or slid back, depending on what the component is or what the failure point. In fact, I was just having a conversation yesterday with a different manufacturer where we were talking about a vehicle that was pretty hard broken. And, we were just kind of throwing out ideas like, well, whenever this happens, it's almost a total of the vehicle. And that was his perception. I was like, well, maybe there's a different way we can approach this. And, can we look at doing X versus Y? And he's like, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to go back to my engineers. We're all trying to figure this out together, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And as the industry matures, we're definitely going to get there. But not many people are talking about maintenance and mean time to failure and all those traditional manned aviation terms when it comes to maintenance and preventative maintenance. So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on that.
Sounds like the area of predictive analysis for maintenance offers a lot of growth and opportunity for someone looking at the industry.
Absolutely. Definitely. Some of the academia is starting to get into it as well. How can we better do this? How can we better provide this data or collect this data, rather interpret it, analyze it, and provide feedback to the manufacturers? Yeah, definitely being seen. And there's some groups jumping into that now.
So looking forward, what do you see as some of the major milestones or the next steps for Robotic Skies?
Really getting into some more areas across the globe that we're not currently at and building out our network more, I think is going to be a big milestone for us, as well as continuing to build our manufacturer base and really show value to the industry that this level of maintenance is not just needed, but also required for safe aerospace practices. Regulatory wise, I think we're on the horizon of seeing some requirements that are going to be levied down through the FAA and other international regulatory bodies that will require this level of aviation maintenance. Maybe not 100% or all the way to what a manned standard is, but it'll be some element of. I think that's going to be a big key to our business moving forward.
You've mentioned you've been with Robotic Skies for only a few months. What were you doing before you joined the company?
So previous to this, I was actually working for a small contracting firm or consulting firm, rather, out of the DC metropolitan area. And I was a air traffic control and UAS integration analyst for the FAA. So I was on the original Part 107 implementation team for the air traffic organization. And then more recently, and right before I was offered or approached and offered a job by Robotic Skies, I was working on the LANCE program, the low altitude authorization and all that. Yeah, so I was on that team that was doing a lot of the onboarding of the new USS providers, as well as helping out with program management and program development. So I've been around the integration effort on UAS with the FAA since 2016.
What was it about Robotic Skies that made you want to be part of the company?
Funny story. It was 2 years earlier. So it was 2017. We were at the AUVSI show in Dallas, and we just so happened to be in booths next to each other. My company was looking, the company I worked for rather, was looking to break into some commercial consulting. So we went down there and we're taking a stab to see if there was a market for us. And we just struck up a conversation with Brad and the CFO/COO, Eric Butler. And by the end of the show, we were making plans to talk monthly and continue this conversation. And I remember telling Brad, I'm like, man, I really, really, really like this business model. I just think you're 2 years too early. It was right around that 2-year mark that they came calling and said, hey, we've been talking for a while. We got some opportunity. We really like you to come on board. And I'd been bought into their business model since day one. So being able to see how the industry developed and where things were kind of going, it's a risk going to a startup anytime you go to a startup, but it was very much a calculated risk. And I felt that their business model was sound, and the industry was leaning towards very much supporting what they were doing. And to me, it was almost a no-brainer on my side, to be honest with you. I mean, I had a really great work that I was doing at the FAA, and it was going to take a lot for me to leave that. And Robotic Skies was able to do that.
Based on your experience and perspective, what's the most important thing that we need to know?
The main thing for me, and I've been preaching this for a while, is that for our airspace system to continue to be as safe as it is today, we need to ensure that we're operating safely in a responsible manner, whether you're a hobbyist at a field, you're a father-son pair that just got a small UAS doing some stuff in the backyard, flying it around the backyard, to, wanting to deliver packages or inspect power lines. These things are aircraft. They do present risk into our system, and there are very thought out and calculated measures that help to mitigate those risks. And everybody has a responsibility to pay attention and to operate in the safest form that they can, because the advancement of this industry and the use cases and these exciting things that we're working on very much depend on that. That to me is the most important thing. Coming in as a former air traffic controller, integration analyst, and now I'm getting into the maintenance space. We need everybody to operate as safe as they can all the time and remain vigilant. That's the big thing for me.
And for my final question, Andy, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry and the maintenance of drones?
We can look down the road to some of the ideal state use cases that we see coming, right? There's urban air mobility. Package delivery is coming something fierce in both those cases, but in all these other use cases that are coming out and being developed on a daily basis, they're going to continue to introduce vehicles into our airspace system. They're going to keep putting vehicles over your head as you're playing in the park or going to the grocery store or just hanging out in your backyard. And the importance of maintenance as part of the entire ecosystem of safe operation does its best to ensure that the vehicle is airworthy, it's reliable, it's safe to be where it is and operating in the manner that it is. Without maintenance, we don't have any assurance. We don't have any safety assurance to know that prop isn't just going to break off and now we got a catastrophic failure, or that communication and control, C2 is not degraded in some form where now we have a lost link scenario and other aircraft are in danger that are nearby. I mean, the scenarios are vast, but the point is that having robust and required maintenance programs for these aircraft keep our skies safe and keep those on the ground safe.
That's it for episode 223 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Andy Osantowske of Robotic Skies. I want to thank Andy for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Robotic Skies or want to connect with Andy, check out the webpage at roboticskies.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate or patreon.com/droneradioshow. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.